address your concerns if you have concerns at that time, but should you have questions or concerns, we'll make sure that they get answered after the meeting or at some future point should it involve a member of staff. Matt Bledsoe is here. Matt, I know what's on his mind, but I'm not going to share it. I'm not going to spoil it.
Good morning. I have an agenda that I've distributed here, and if you'd like to refer to it.
Just state your name and address, Matt.
My name is Matt Bledsoe. I'm the park manager over at Gamble Rogers State Park and North Peninsula State Park. It's located on the Volusia-Flagler County line, and I'm here to inform and invite everybody to a public meeting that is happening December 13th at Tomoka State Park at 5:30 at night. It is it's a review of our 10-year unit management plan. All state parks are guided by a 10-year unit management plan. Ours is coming under review right now, and just want to invite all of you and the public to be aware that this is the opportunity to become familiar with the plan and provide comments and feedback on how to best guide our practices over the next 10 years in regards to natural and cultural resource management of the park, recreational facilities and opportunities that we'll be providing at the park. And this is the public's opportunity to comment and provide feedback on that.
Great. So, thank you very much.
Yes. It is December 13th at 5:30 at night, and it'll be located at Tomoka State Park in Ormond.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
And for those of you who have not been there, it's a great park. I enjoy the beach right across from that. I think it's one of the few rock beaches that we have in our area. So thank you. And I have no one else wishing to speak at this time. So we will close the portion of our meeting and see you back here at 10 o'clock for the remainder of the meeting. Good morning. It is 9:55. We will begin at exactly at 10 o'clock, so just give you a little bit of a warning. And I will make an announcement at 1 minute to go, and we will do the countdown. Thank you for all for being here. We have 1 minute, 1 minute till the final. This is the final countdown, just for today. Morning. Are we on? It is 10 o'clock. I didn't give you quite a minute, but welcome to the December 7th meeting of the Volusia County Council. Thank you all for being here. We certainly appreciate you showing up and becoming involved in part of the process. At this time, we'll have the invocation given by Daryl Irving. Daryl. And while he's coming forward, if you're the leader of your faith community or your worship area, would like to offer the invocation, it's open to all. So I'm asking the council to stand. We'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Great morning to you all, first and foremost. I am Daryl Irving, a resident here of D-Land, small business owner as well here. Today, on behalf of the Islamic Center of Deltona, we extend our great gratitude and thanks for this pleasure of giving the invocation here today. I start out by greeting all of you with words of peace that many of our prophets and wise men of old, have given, including Jesus in John 20:26, with Assalamu alaikum, meaning peace be unto you. To proceed with the prayer, I will first say it in Arabic and then interpret it in English. Inna alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayati ahmalina yahdihil falu wa lahu wa ashhadu in la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadin abduhu wa rasuluhu. To interpret, all thanks and praise belongs to God. We seek his help and forgiveness, and we seek refuge in God from the evil within ourselves and the consequences of our evil. Whoever God guides would never be led astray, and whoever Allah allows to be astray will never find guidance. I openly bear witness that there is no God but one, and that Prophet Muhammad is his last and final prophet. O Allah, as we come before you today in humility, we ask not only for your grace and mercy, we thank you for your many blessings that you bestow upon us as individuals in our community. We ask that your guiding hand be placed upon this institution and the council members as they partake of their duty to you and to us, the public. We ask that your abundant blessings be with the great city of D-Land, our great nation of America, and of course the entire world. We love you, we thank you, and we praise you always and always. Thank you, and God bless America. Amen.
Marcy, can we have the roll call, please?
Ms. Post?
Here.
Ms. Wheeler? Ms. Cusack? Ms. Denise? Ms.
Here.
Denise? Did she say? Dr. Lowry?
Here.
Mr. Patterson?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Does anyone have a comment they would like to make on any of the consent agenda items? Mr. Deneen, I believe you have
Yes, if anyone first, any of the council members, and then I'll.
any council member.
I have a couple that I need to just make a comment on. A, B, C, D, and E we'll put together, and I'd ask Karen Feaster to come up. Karen, you want to give us a little overview? This is a lot of money, and it's part of the ongoing improvements we're making to the airport. Mr. Chair, I will tell you that hearing back from the air industry, that the only way you're going to stay competitive in today's world is to stay competitive. And that means to constantly do the upgrades that we've been doing behind the scenes. But if it's not the runways, it's the baggage handling system, it's all the stuff that we're doing. This is all part of that, but this is what will keep us competitive. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Rick Carl, Director of Aviation. I'm here with Karen Feaster, Deputy Airport Director. Two things I'd like to point out on this project, and then I'll let Karen proceed. One is that it's a lot of money, but it's 90% of this comes from the federal government, the FAA, 90%. 5% comes from the state, DOT, and 5% from the airport funds, which, as you know, is an enterprise fund, so this is not, there's no local ad valorem tax dollars going into this project. The second thing is there are three separate items: the paving, the design, and now the oversight, and the actual construction management. These were all bid out competitively, so it's all competitive. And with that, Karen, will you just explain quickly?
Sure, thank you. Okay, so everything you see in yellow is taxiway November, and that will all be rehabbed, and that is going to include the lighting, signage, pavement, and all the underground utility work. And this just kind of shows the complication of the project and logistics. The award in front of you today is the bottom right and the top right piece. We call that bid schedule B. We hope to receive the next piece of this grant in time where we can come back and award a change order to the contractor for Schedule C. And then we hope over the next 2 years we'll continue to get grant funding, and we'll have to bid out those two blue pieces. And then, as Rick mentioned, this is estimated to be about a $40 million project, and it's funded by FAA and DOT, and we hope to start the first phase first quarter of next year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very important, especially with Embry-Riddle there and with our lead that is being taken in aviation, as well as what this does for economic development. And Mr. Deneen, you had one other item.
Yes, only Donna will comment on this. Item F,
Okay.
which is the,
Excuse me, okay,
They're not pulling them.
no,
No.
I understand, no, I want, on this particular item, were these documents attached to the consent agenda? Did I not see them? Are they on the consent agenda?
I thought they were there.
Did I just not see them? I can't,
They're large documents, and they're
no,
available.
no, I'm this.
No,
What
but
you
we will make
presented.
sure it's attached.
This was not
That
attached.
is not attached.
Right.
We hand it out. It'll be part of the record, though.
Okay, but can we put that on the consent agenda with all the documents going forward, Mr. Manager?
yeah, what happened was I asked him to comment on this, and he thought this would help clarify his comments.
It does, I mean, it's good, that's why I want it
Yeah.
there.
We'll make sure it gets
Exactly,
attached
thank you.
next time.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, the only other comment I had was because of the size of it, and because sometimes people don't understand what our Industrial Development Authority revenue bonds are, because it is $26 million, I asked Donna to comment on it.
Good morning. The $26 million item is to finance the cost of acquiring Woodland Towers, which is in the south part of DeLand. So everybody's real clear, and for the record, it doesn't constitute any kind of debt or liability or obligation of the county, nor does it pledge any of the county's funds for in the future. So we're not obligated in any way for this debt. Even if there is a default, we're not obligated. And the reason this is before you, it satisfies an IRS requirement so that this particular bond issue for this debt is tax-free to the bondholders.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Does any member wish to comment on is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second, Wheeler. Any objection to the item? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimous, and we move to item number 1 or 2. Good morning. This is a public hearing process, and the public hearing is now open. And Regina?
Good morning. Regina Montgomery, Solid Waste Division. Before you today is a 5-year renewal of a non-exclusive solid waste franchise to Container Rental Company to provide solid waste collection to businesses in unincorporated Volusia County. The public hearing was duly advertised. All documents were submitted, and staff recommends approval.
Any questions? Is there a
Move
motion?
a-
Sorry.
Move approval of renewal of non-exclusive commercial solid waste collection franchise to Container Rental Company, Inc.
Any questions, discussion? Any objections to the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Regina. Now we'll move to item number 3.
Good morning.
This too is a public hearing process, and we will open the public hearing.
Okay, I need more. You got.
Mr. Brenton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council, Jerry Brenton, County Engineer. Before you today is a pretty, what you've seen is pretty routine, old antiquated subdivision with platted alleyways within it. The petitioners, this is on Old New York, west of town, and west of Hontoon Road, on the north side of Old New York. Before you there is an aerial showing the old antiquated lots. The petitioner owns those 5 lots, and it's separated by a 20-foot platted alleyway. It's wooded today. They want to develop it, and with that 20-foot alleyway, it can't be to the liking of them. There is no public purpose currently for that alleyway, and we don't believe there will be a public purpose for that alleyway in the future. So staff recommends approval.
Thank you. I have no one wishing to speak on this issue, therefore we will close the public participation. Council?
Mr. Chair, I pushed my button over here. I move approval of the vacational portion of the plat of Riverside Estates, map book 11, pages 269 through 271, in the DeLand area. Move approval.
Is there a second? Oh, sorry. Dr. Lowry.
I just had a question for Mr. Brenton. Just
Oh, sorry.
on when you have that, obviously, when we allow that one part of the alleyway to go away, there's no way you can put an alleyway through there. I'm just wondering why when we do that, we don't just do the whole area, or is that impossible, or is that illegal, or whatever? Because you can't put an alleyway in there now once you block it there with that.
Right.
Correct.
I'm just wondering why
We have attempted to do that in the past. In fact, Carl Persis up in Ormond Beach in Coquina Key, I think it was, tried to go ahead and get rid of them all.
I got you.
And just couldn't reach people or get consensus.
Yeah.
And it's a nightmare, but we do notify the people
I was just curious.
directly
but- okay.
adjacent.
Thank you.
We would love to do it because council wouldn't have to see these repeatedly coming back in the future, but it's been unsuccessful in the past.
But it's a good question. It's a good question asked by other council members.
Any other questions or discussion by the council? Any objection to the motion? Hearing no objections, the motion passes unanimous. We will now move to item number 4.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir?
Donna will come forward on the financing part. Both George and Jerry Britton can talk about this issue. It is a significant amount of money. It has been a long incoming project. It's really an important project for us. But I do want to emphasize that when Donna talks about the portion and how this is financed, this seems to get lost sometimes, so I'm going to highlight this, and that is this portion of money is going to come out of the MSD. And there's all this confusion as though a lot of people think we have one big giant pot of money. No, we do not. These funds are earmarked based on how they're collected. And this portion has to come from the MSD because this is the portion that service is provided to those unincorporated area residents. So they have to pay their portion. There is a portion of this building paid by the general fund. Donna?
Okay. Good morning. Donna DePeister, Deputy County Manager, CFO. The item before you today is asking you to approve a $7 million loan to complete the financing for the $13.5 million Sheriff's Evidence Facility. Just to recap about the project, $5 million of this project is funded in total by the general fund. The remaining $8.5 million is going to be funded by the MSD, but the MSD only had about $1.5 million of capital cash reserves available for the project. So we were financing $7 million to complete the financing for this project. This has been planned since we introduced the idea of and got approval of this project back in, I think it was 2015. I want to say it was either May or October of 2015. PFM, our financial advisor, and Jay Glover is here today to answer any questions you have, actually distributed a request for proposal to qualified financial institutions so that we can secure a loan. The idea was to get the lowest overall rate that we could get. 6 proposals were received. Center State Bank provided the best terms. They provided us with a 2.87% loan for 20 years. We're able to draw down those funds over a 12-month period, and we have no prepayment penalty. So should we want to pay that debt off early, especially since it's a 20-year loan, we can do so at any time with no prepayment penalty. The debt service at this point is for the MSD is scheduled at about $465,000 a year that we will be budgeting in the MSD going forward. Again, I believe we presented that amount in our 5-year forecast, and you will see it going forward in the future forecasts and budgets. And just to make sure we're clear on this does not affect the Go to Zero plan for the general fund, because again, this is an MSD planned expenditure and does not affect the general fund.
I'd like to emphasize that even though we have taken some risk against the MSD reserves when we picked up in the unincorporated area twice during both hurricanes and have never been reimbursed yet. This cost was anticipated, and because that fund's very tight, we borrowed this money over 20 years. Generally, we would have done this over 10 years. That fund cannot afford it. But we did balance this in, so even with all the other things we had, this payment was already anticipated, and it's in your 5-year forecast.
What I'd also do, I'd like to introduce Ken Arton is here as well. He's we used to call him debt counsel now. We don't call him just bond counsel, debt counsel now, and he helped us work on the contract that's before you. So today we're going to ask you to do 2 things: approve the loan and also approve the appropriation of $7 million so we can appropriate it officially as a budgeted item.
Mr. Patterson.
Yeah, Mr. Deneen? Mr. Deneen.
Yes.
You said that funding from the MSD. So this only involves evidence that's collected in the unincorporated area?
Well, the building will be used for evidence that's collected in areas that are also incorporated, but that portion will be picked up by the $5 million. This is the proportionate share of the evidence and the work that would be conducted in the unincorporated areas.
Okay, so in the incorporated areas, they will reimburse us for costs, or this is just something we bear?
No, what happens is that in the general fund areas, we will use general fund, and it has to do with the individual cases that the sheriff handles, or if anyone else uses the facility, which could happen with some of the other agencies. What this is a proportional cost related to how much activity takes place in the unincorporated areas that the sheriff collects evidence on.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Denise.
Mr. Denny, Mr. Councilman Patterson kind of asked where I was going with this too. I guess my concern is if we can take $5 million out of the general fund for a project, and we know we're already in a critical situation in the MSD, how do we know? I guess what I'm thinking is there's no reason we can't reapportion what comes out of the general fund and this. This is just a statistical.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to change the balance because we have more leverage in the general fund than
But
we do the MSD. The MSD is critical at this stage.
But it's balanced on the amount of work that they do within the areas. So your theory is that this is the value that's attributed to the evidence they collect in the unincorporated areas.
Okay, I'm not going to go to theory. I want to go to policy. We have the MSD fund out of all of our funds is critical. We all agree with that, especially with picking up the hurricane debris from the 2 hurricanes. And when we look at budgets next year, council and reserves, the MSD fund, there's going to have to be a tax increase. There's out of all of them for services, this MSD fund. So are we allowed, or is it legal to take more of this money from the general fund? There's nothing that says we cannot. Is that true, Ms. Trecker?
In fact,
No, that's not true.
Okay, then set it,
It's
tell me.
there's some reasonable allocation to be made, but the Constitution provides that you cannot tax municipal residents for services that are rendered exclusively in the unincorporated area. So while there's some judgment as to the usage, you can't just say, well, the general fund can bear the cost more easily, so therefore, regardless of the usage, we're going to shift the funds there. The patrol function of the sheriff's office is is rendered essentially exclusively for the unincorporated area. They've made an allocation for usage on a countywide basis or in anticipation of some of the municipal agencies availing themselves for this. But while there's some judgment to be had, there is a constitutional principle that to be honored.
Okay, then tagging on again on what Councilman Patterson said with the municipalities where the sheriff's department is contracted with several of our municipalities, where does that refund go? Does that go into the general fund or the MSD?
MSD. Donna?
Yes, the contracts for services that are provided to the 4 cities that we provide services for is the funding comes from the cities and it goes into the MSD.
In other words, the theory is that you're not supposed to be, it could lead to a lawsuit. You're not supposed to be subsidizing the basically the urban services of the unincorporated area with the taxes that people pay in the general fund for other government services, because they tend to pay those. If they're doing their own fire and police, then most of the taxes they're paying you for is the courts and things like that. So that's the theory. These are good questions, because I think a lot of times people wonder why we do it this way. But that way, you don't have people arguing. What you'd be doing is subsidizing other people's services with other cities' money. And then you could have a taxpayer lawsuit. Somebody says, look, I paid tax dollars to the county government for county services like the court system, and you're using it to write down their costs for fire and police when I'm paying fire and police in my city. I would say, Ms. Daines, you're right. We made a judgment call. If you approve the loan, because there is a flexibility, we can come back and show you how that number was. And let's face it, we can move it a little bit. I mean, it's still a judgment call. But there is that fundamental principle of not subsidizing the MSD with general fund money so that we're fair to the taxpayers that are paying the cities.
And I understand that. So looking at this project, as it stands now, it's 13 million. We know it's going to come in more than that, because I don't know how long ago this was. Well, we do in 2015. We know costs have increased. So based on 2015, we know, and I'm
Jerry? Well,
assuming
we're going to
that-
talk about the project a little bit, and Jerry can get into that.
But here's the thing. So right now, we're looking at 13 million is our base, 8.5 coming out of MSD, including the 1.5 we're taking out of reserves, and this 7 million. So so the general fund is going to absorb 1/3 of it, and MSD is going to take 2/3 of it. Is the breakdown?
I don't have the percentage
I
in
do.
front
It's
of
the
me.
numbers. 13 minus 8.5 is 4.5. 4.5 is about 1/3 of 13 million. It's 1/3. I'll do the numbers. It's 1/3. So the question is, my question is, and I'm going to support this, but I'd like to come back and I'd like to see how we can balance this out, because the MSD fund is just on life support. It's on life support right now.
Well, a big part of, first of all, you got to get reimbursed. All the funds need to be reimbursed by the hurricanes.
Right.
That put us in a lot healthier stead. Here's the issue. It's very easy to understand. The MSD, the unincorporated areas, have lower property value and are a lot less dense. So you're asking for services to cover large areas with fewer properties that pay less taxes. And so what happens is, and what's happened to the MSD is that fire service is a perfect example. Fire service is very expensive because of the nature of fire service and how the density is so low. And what the previous council have had to do, and Ms. Daines, I know, and a number of you were involved with this, we raised the fire MSD because the citizens asked us to, because you were willing to cut it. And they said, no, we'd rather pay the extra money. And what's happened is that the council, and I don't blame my council members, They were always leery because the way the unincorporated people see their tax burden for urban services is a combination of MSD and fire services. And our fire rate has to be significantly high because of the low value, low density of those areas. And it really has pushed, because there's no other funding except property tax for fire. In this system, there are some other funds that could go into it. And so what's happened is, to keep that rate from getting too high for the unincorporated areas, the council has always squeezed down the MSD as much as they could in terms of this side of the funding, because the fire fund pushed it up. It's a difficult balance.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cusack?
It's good, I'm very glad you're asking these questions, because this is part of the misunderstanding that sometimes happens, that these funds are not all one fund in a big bucket.
Can you just drill down a little bit more on this and bring it back before the final note is?
Yes, we have flexibility. If you say approve the loan, we can come back and look at tweaking the formula to, because we can use judgment one with the other. I thought also you might find interesting and give a little history of just where we are on the project. I know there's some council members that wanted us to do that today.
Please. Yeah, and thank you for that. Okay.
Jerry?
Ms. Cusack?
Thank you, Ms.
Can I add just one quick thing, just real quick? Just so you know, when you approve the loan, we won't be drawing it down immediately. We have a whole year to draw it down, so that gives you
Right.
some flexibility and some free.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hold this up for getting additional information, which could be adjusted later.
Right.
Okay. Ms. Cusack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add that it does seem that we are charging the MSD fund a disproportionate amount in this equation. And also, and you're basing that on a reasonable probability of the cost. Is that right? Of the service?
It's actually based on historically what usage they needed from the unincorporated for this type of, for evidence,
Yeah,
for
Ormond
holding
Beach
evidence.
would store their own, Port Orange would store their own, the cities, when
So
evidence is
therefore,
taken in.
then, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we need to proceed cautiously and with our numbers as we come back with this, because I don't want this MSD fund, which is already on life support, to be overtaxed in this area. So that would be my recommendation, that we keep a very close eye on this as you proceed to draw down these funds. That was my comment. I do have some concerns.
Okay. My thought, just real quickly on that, is that is why we encouraged back in the day in Ormond Beach that Ormond by the Sea annexed into the city, so they would have the lower tax rates and benefit from that, which they would have. And Doug Daniels, I know, was a big proponent of trying to, he said, just annex everything that's out there in the unincorporated area. That will solve it, but you can't take the money that Deltona is paying for services that goes into the MSD and then charge the rest of the cities for the services that are not being provided for to them. I mean, to me,
I think we
there's a
understand
balance.
that. We understand that, but we want to make sure that we are not overburdening this MSD fund.
Well, I think we are, because the MSD fund, from what we've seen, what we've experienced just this year, is on life support.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And because the services that are being provided are not generating the revenue to cover the cost of the services.
What I can do is, it is a judgment call.
It is.
So if we get it approved today, what we'll do is we'll look and we'll see if we can vary that within reason, that so we can still defend it. We'll look to see whether that percentage can be changed at all. But the fundamental portion that it has to be paid a lot from the MSD still stands. But we if you approve this, we have the flexibility. We're not going to spend the money right now. We can come back with a plan. I heard you loud and clear. You know, if I have to, you can round one way or the other, okay? And obviously you'd like me to round more towards the general fund than the MSD, as long as it will stand the test of logic, so that if someone would sue us over it, I can defend it. Then I understand where you want to come. I am as apprehensive as you are. And what we did was, we run the fund thin because fire has pushed this cost up. And the thing that we took the biggest gamble on, which I think you did the right thing, was the removal of debris in a lot of the unincorporated area that in some areas was questionable, that we put up the fund against it.
Okay, Ms. Post?
I'll wait till after he's done with his.
Okay. Ms. Dennis, you have another?
Just another general comment on that, and it doesn't pertain to this, but yet it does dovetail into it with the fire. We need to take a look at some of those stations we talked about closing, because it's on life support. It's time to take the breath out of some things that don't need to survive any longer, and we know where to go with that. We need to take a look at that. We need to be actively engaged before the next even budget cycle comes around, because there's things that we talked about doing during that time when the previous council decided to raise the fees for fire in that MSD. It was with a certain understanding there were some other things going to come along with it, and that has not happened yet. Where there's some things that we need to get proactive on and close at least two that I think that had been discussed. We need to close some firehouses and cut down on expense. Thanks.
When he's done, he's gonna talk about the.
He's going to give you an overview.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sue, could you go ahead and put up the cut sheet from the capital plan?
While they're bringing this up, Mr. Chair, I should mention, because I think it's appropriate, that the previous sheriff this was the number one thing in the sheriff's organization after we did the communication center. Once we got out of the bad turn in the economy, in all fairness to the new sheriff, all of the capital projects, included this, we reviewed with his staff to see if he had any concerns or changes, and he endorsed moving forward with this project.
Okay, Ms. Post.
I agree with what Councilwoman Denny's was saying about addressing the fire services issue and certainly EVAC. I know there's been some questions on additional public safety services and maybe rebooting and reevaluating a lot of those different services. This is a perfectly opportune time to do that in this new cycle, and especially when we're looking at a project this big. I can tell you, I don't know if how many of you have actually gone out to the evidence facility and toured it. I know a number of you have, but it is direly in need of basically being bulldozed, I would say.
It is.
It is, I mean, mold, just all kinds of horrible stuff. So I wouldn't want to work there. So this is definitely a project that needs to be done, needs to be expedited. I'm, no more delays on it, and but certainly if we can get it shifted over to the general fund as much as possible, I think we need to do that. So I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the loan agreement for $7 million for financing of a portion of the cost of a new sheriff's evidence facility and appropriating the loan proceeds.
Second, Patterson, and we'll continue the discussion. If you feel that we need additional information from staff,
Here's what I was asked, Mr. Chair, and that was to give a brief, because this was a past council, to at least give a little quick history of how we got to this part for the public's sake.
Well, we have a evidence room that's deteriorated to nothing and has to be replaced. I mean, that's pretty
It's up to
straightforward.
the council
Is it
on
not?
what they want us to share.
Anyone? Huh? I'm good. I think we don't need the historical perspective when we know we've got to do something. Whatever caused it to be there, it's here.
That's fine by me.
Patterson.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I could address Ms. Denny's concern about overrun of the cost.
Mr. Chair, and just in deference, I'm going to take the heat on this one. I was the one that asked the manager, because when we come into capital expenditures this big and was going to affect one of our funds as strongly as it is, I think it's important to not just pass a budget item, but to understand how we got here to begin with and where we're going and the implications that's going to take. Because if you look at this, look at our construction timeline, we should have finished it already. There's a lot of things been delayed for a lot of reasons, but that was my request, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So I'll take the heat on this one. But yeah, I think it's just to go on the record with this, because this will have direct impacts in the next budget year. I think it's important.
Mr. Patterson.
I've been at the evidence room a couple of times, so I know how nasty that place is over there. I think one of the things that most of the people in the Municipal Services District, the MSD, don't realize also, from what Mr. Deneen, the low values of homes, but there's a lot of agricultural exempt.
Yes.
Plus, there's a lack of commercial. It's
Yes.
high residential, so it really poses a problem in trying to provide those services. And a lot of people in the MSD don't really understand why. You know, several of our cities have that same problem also, that large residential and zero or limited commercial.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Patterson. That probably, I should have highlighted that. That is one of the big misunderstandings. So you have lower property values, a lot more low density, but you have very little commercial and industrial buildings in relationship to the higher dense cities that support the taxes. And I think a lot of citizens don't understand that what they pay in taxes directly relates to everybody that's in the tax pool. And if you don't have commercial, industrial properties in there, because they tend in some cases to pay a disproportionate share a little higher. If you don't have them to help subsidize, then it makes it harder on the residents when it's all residential. I think, if nothing else, Deltona struggles with this because of their lack of industrial and commercial property, and it really hurts them. So we're sort of our MSD is sort of a reflection of what Deltona struggles with.
I think the other issue that we'll be looking at if that constitutional amendment goes through on the additional $25,000 exemption, is going to really put a bind in also.
Get the forks out. Okay, so, you want him to provide us the history of the
I could give
evidence?
just a status, not history.
Just a quick status
Okay.
update.
I would like him to address the idea of the overage.
Yes. Jerry Brenton, County Engineer. As we discussed, it was approved by County Council in May of 15. The budget is fixed. We've made it very clear that it's $13.5 million, and it will not go higher than that. County Council approved this as a construction management contract. It's not a hard bid. So our construction manager is in the process of soliciting bids now. And we expect before Christmas, we will have that guaranteed maximum price in. And of the 13.5, the maximum guaranteed price cannot exceed 11.5. Ajax Construction knows that and understands that he can do that. So it will not go over the budget. And so the guaranteed maximum price of the draft will come in before Christmas. Very importantly, we've been working hand in glove with the sheriff's office throughout the whole process, even with the change of sheriffs. And early January, we will be meeting with the top brass of the sheriff's office to ensure that everything that's in the scope of this project is what is expected. And then we will finalize it as staff, and we'll bring it back to the county council the first meeting of February for approval.
Any additional questions? Any comments by the council? We have a motion on the floor. A second. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous. Ms. Cusack? Okay. We're moving to item 5, sorry. Tim?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Honorable County Council members. I'm Tim Bailey, Volusia County Parks, Recreation, and Culture Director. Before you today, we're discussing the potential expansion of the Michael Crotty Bicentennial Park Large Dog Area. So I wanted to give you a little background of how we started the dog park out there. So back just before 2010, we had a variety of folks that own dogs that were allowing their dogs off leash in the open green space area, that's the ball field area. And dogs were running into the pavilion area and eating off the tables, as well as running through the polling booth. So we realized we had to try to meet the needs of the area out there in terms of creating a dog park. So we met on December 18th of 2010. We met out there in public. I believe it was a Saturday. And I came up with a variety of options of where to develop a dog park at the park. So what you're seeing here is this green space off to the left here. I'm going to annotate this for a second. It would be the green space to the left of the ball field. And that was option one. Option two was to encase the ball field area, which is right here. And then option three was the box that's on your screen. That's where the public opted to develop the dog park area. So what we did then is we started that process and developed the dog park and opened it on October 1st, 2011. On April, and it was great success. I mean, we had a lot of dog owners out there. It was a great day, right? And so after that time, because it was so successful, we had just a lot of dogs in that area. It's 1.6 acres, so it's kind of a confined space. But on April 14th, I met with the public again because we were looking at the turf out there. It was showing signs of deterioration. It was starting to die off. Now, remember, we had added irrigation out to the site. We also worked with the University of Florida to develop the proper, or to install the proper grass that would work in that environment. Remember, it's a salt environment. It's near the coast. It's going to have a lot of traffic on it. And so after deliberation, common Bermuda was the grass of choice. That was believed to be the best grass type that would survive or have the best chance of surviving in that area. So what we did is we try to come up with some ideas on how we can manage that turf out there. And so we came up with an idea that, kind of like what we do in ball fields, is when we have a ball field that's overused, we try to rotate usage to give the Bermuda a chance to rest and a chance to grow. And so the concept here was we were shifting the large dogs to the small dog area and the small dogs to the large dog area with the intention of having the large dog area an opportunity to rest and regrow. So what we did there within 2 weeks, the small dog area started to show signs of deterioration. So we said, well, we're going to end up with two areas now, both large and dog areas are going to be deteriorated. So we ended that program. We rotated the large dogs back to the large dog area and the small dogs to the small dog area. So moving forward, then back in October 23rd, 2014, I was having some issues with the users not following the rules out there, and there were some dog fights, and so I enlisted the help of the sheriff's office as well as animal control to help the folks follow the rules and the guidelines of picking up after themselves and keeping their dogs in the right area. And so what I did was I asked the public to meet, and I asked them to comply with the rules. And so at that meeting, they asked some things from me. And so one of the things that they had requested was they wanted additional shade. It's a hot area, especially during the summertime. They also asked for benches for the mobility impaired, and then they also asked for additional turf. And by that time, I had already added new turf to the large dog area multiple times. We had to fence it off, give it a chance to grow and establish. And then really as soon as we opened up that area again, the turf started to deteriorate again. So we really, I explained to the folks that I really was going to have a trouble trying to maintain the turf in that park because of the space and because of the the volume of dogs in the area. So I did offer, though, you see those two yellow boxes in the large dog area. I said, well, what happens if I remove those landscaped areas to give dogs an opportunity to distribute their traffic in a greater footprint, with the intention of offsetting some of the traffic that's on the deteriorated areas, with the hopes of grass would rejuvenate, right? So that was not supported, and so what we ended up with, I said, really, I don't really have many solutions to help with the turf besides expanding the footprint to distribute the dog traffic under a larger area. And we've had success in other parks, dog parks, specifically Barclay Square in DeLand. It's 9 acres, and if you've been to the site, there's a lot of green grass out there, and there's still a lot of traffic, a lot of dogs use that area. So really, what we need here was a greater footprint to try to get the dogs to distribute their traffic. So what we did then, we listened to the folks, and in 2016, I added the 2 pavilions, one to the large dog area, one to the small dog area. I also added 2 concrete paths that were ADA, and we added benches to that location. And then we started on the expansion, which, by the way, the expansion project was approved by County Council with the adoption of the FY 16-17 Park Impact Fee budget. And so we started, before we disturbed any of the turf or the vegetation out there, I made sure the environmental staff that is certified by the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to go out there and do a gopher tortoise survey prior to any activity, which they've complied with. And then we started mulching the expansion area, and I want to spend a little bit of time on mulching. We weren't digging into the dirt, okay? So we weren't moving dirt into the gopher tortoises or getting into the ground beneath the vegetation. All we were doing was chopping the top of that, which does not require a turtle permit relocation permit. So we complied with that. We then started the mulching process, and then Fish and Wildlife, who wasn't aware of the process, came out and asked us to stop till they gathered more information. So what we did then on that, where you see those 3 dots, those were the 3 active gopher tortoise nests that were in the mulched area, and that was after the mulched area, after we mulched the area. And then the green circles there are the burrows that were surveyed prior to the mulched area. So I wanted to meet back with the public and say, listen, I thought I was complying with what you had requested me to do, and so it seemed like there was a change of heart. So on November 7th, 2017, I had another public meeting out there. It was in the evening. Had approximately 80 park patrons attended, and the vast majority, somewhere 80 or over % of the room had not supported the dog park expansion. I offered some different options, but none of the options were really embraced. So I also, after the meeting, I also sent an email out to those attendees, and I asked them to respond in writing so I can keep a documented, a detailed analysis of how many folks supported or did not support. That information came back. 87% of the responses did not support the expansion of the dog park. So I wanted to come up with some alternatives on what we can do as opposed to expanding the dog park. So knowing that I'm not going to have much success with the turf, there's sand out there. I don't have any real good solution with the amount of traffic and the square feet of dog space to have a good, healthy turf out there. So maybe I could help the users by adding a concrete path that would go from the large and small dog areas over to the covered pavilions that were added. And then also add a water station. So for the dogs that were roaming through the sand, the owners would have an opportunity to rinse off their dogs, the sand off their dogs before they got back into their vehicle. So those were the 2 things I think I might be able to help the public in regards to the sand out there. And I wanted to just give you a brief look at what that might look like now. Those red squares are where the pavilions are currently at. The white lines would where the path could be. And I wanted to before I leave this topic here, those white lines, those are just really conceptual at this point in time. Those lines would have to be ADA accessible. it's a 1-to-20 ratio, 1 foot rise to a 20-foot run. So they might need to be modified. They might need to hug the fence line to get to the pavilion. So those are just really conceptual right now, but the concrete would be added, and I would just have to meet ADA requirements on that. So with that, that's the brief overview I had for this topic. Okay.
Council, I had, this is not a public hearing because all we're going to do is ask direction back to staff, but I had one individual who wanted to speak to this. Did you want to allow that individual to speak prior to our discussion? Council?
Sure.
Okay. Melissa? And you'll have 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind. State
Good
your
morning,
name and
honorable council members and Director Bailey. It's a pleasure to be here again. Good morning. My name is Melissa Lammers. I live at 10 Wisteria Drive in Ormond Beach, Florida, 32176. That's in Ormond by the Sea. I represent a group of 91 citizens, North Peninsula Preservation. Some of our members are here today. They'll stand for just a moment. My family moved to Ormond by the Sea in 1965, so I have seen many, many changes to the area. When I was a child, there was plenty of wilderness to explore, from beach to river, and explore it I did, developing a lifelong love of our county's natural beauty. Today, Bicentennial Park offers the only stretch of undeveloped public green space for 10 miles between Granada Boulevard and North Peninsula State Park. In fact, it's the only undeveloped public green space on the peninsula between there and Smyrna Dunes. It also lies directly on the Ormond Scenic Loop and Trail, which is a national scenic byway. It's quite unique. Many of us parkgoers cherish the ability to step onto the nature trail just off A1A and into tranquility. That trail, which runs from the ocean onto the Halifax River, is unique among all of the county parks. It traverses several ecosystems, from sandy beach to scrub dune to estuarine hammock. Director Bailey and his staff are to be highly commended for the wonderful job they've done of maintaining it throughout the years. Thank you, Director Bailey. Our wish, and the wish of the majority of those who attended a public meeting at the park with Director Bailey on November 7th, is simply that the mulched area be allowed to grow back and that the trail be restored, so visitors and residents alike can continue to experience the natural beauty that was once the North Peninsula and fall in love with it, just as I did as a child. Thank you, and happy holidays, however you choose to celebrate them.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, Ms. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I go to that park. I have been there quite a few times. I have 2 small dogs. I hated it when they put me over on the big dog park side when everything was already torn up, and my dogs got lost back in there. I would hate to see any of the greenery removed in there, any of the trees, anything more than what's already has been done. I would like to have the growth back. It's a pleasure to go there and have those areas that we can wander through. I would hate to see just an empty field, just a blank field for the dogs to run around. You know, my comments when I was listening to all of this and looking at this was, you know, it's a project and a total waste of time in some ways trying to rectify the grass, you know, and that my question was, and what I presented to staff was, as you go in to each area, that is the most heavily used right there at the entrance. That's where definitely the people are going in and out, the dogs are going in and out, there's water up there, you know, the whole shebang. If we protect that area a little bit, like maybe with the sidewalk going to the pavilions or just to get them out past that area, have water stations in the back or what, I don't know, I haven't been out there for a while, so there might be water stations maybe in the back so the dogs aren't always going to the front, you know, for everything. Kind of relocate it, but I would really hate to see, I know at one point that was the idea, but having been out there and use it, I cherish it the way it is. It's beautiful, and it's where I want to take my dog, except for the sand spurs, just saying. But I think if we can work on different ways to take the traffic off of that very first area, redirect it or something, just so we don't have the mud accumulation, but don't move me back over into the big dog park.
Okay. Ms.
Thank
Post.
you.
Heather.
Mr. Bailey, I'd like to say thank you very much for all your hard work on this. I know I've talked with you extensively on this park project and with a number of citizens. And you maintaining all of the parks and working with all of the citizens at each park around the county with all their eccentricities is certainly commendable, the amazing job that you do. So I want to thank you on that. And then certainly when this issue arose this time, you were very, very responsive, and I'm just very happy with you. So I just wanted to point that out. This is also a great example, I think, of citizens actually voicing their opinions and making things happen. And I think that that's absolutely wonderful. It's your area that you live in. Your feedback and your opinions are very important. And the fact that you drove out here on a Thursday morning, especially to be here in person, above and beyond the emails and the phone calls, I thank you for that because that is certainly makes an impact. So I want to thank you for that. But I would propose that we have staff move forward with this new direction.
Okay. Well,
we need a
this
motion?
is
Because
discussion
it's
to go back to give direction back to staff. Let me weigh on this just briefly. I was out there the last couple of weeks. My wife and I, we used to use the park for our large dog, and the only way you're going to be able to rejuvenate any of the area is a larger area, a larger space. I spent probably a couple of hours out there one day talking to probably as many as 20 people about this. And one of the things I found that was unique is that people, some of your friends and neighbors who may support the expansion are afraid to say anything for fear because you're a friend. You create a social organization there. There are people there that meet every day and walk their dogs, let the dogs run. You don't have to walk them. We live in the trails. My wife walks our dog twice a day, but he doesn't get to run. And it's a great place for let the dogs go and run. And no one complained to me that time about walking in the sand. To create a concrete structure that's going to have to be ADA compliant, that's going to be sloped on that 1 to 20, it's going to take some engineering, and I don't see what it's going to do other than allowing an individual, not a dog, this is a dog park, an individual to get from point A to point B. It's a wild, open dog park, and not a single person mentioned that they needed a walkway for that. The small park does have a fair amount of grass on it, which is maintained. There seems to be a discussion between the small dog owners and the large dog owners as to which one actually owns or controls the park. The people that I talked to with the large dog, because that's where I spent most of the time, the rest of the time, and the large dog owners seem to be more out with their dogs walking in different areas. The small owners seem to be sitting watching their dogs run. I guess small dogs may be easier to manage than the large ones. I think we can all know that. But I think we have to try to create a balance. The entire area was not destroyed. I mean, if you read the emails that we received, or I received, and I'm assuming you did, I would have thought that somebody went out there with a napalm or something and gutted the entire area. They didn't. It's not that bad. And the majority of the trail is still there. You can still go to the river. You can still walk that area. I was out there. I saw it. So you can still walk. I know, Ms. Post, you've been out there recently. I've been out there. And it hasn't been that devastated. Either we're going to try to balance it where the dogs, which it is a dog park, remember? It's not a nature trail. It was created as a dog park for that. And I know a lot of my neighbors use that on a daily basis. maybe not daily, but at least weekly. They go out there and use it, even though we have 6 or 7 miles you can walk with your dog on a leash. So it's used. Ormond Beach is developed, will have their own dog park coming up in the Y at the YMCA very soon. So being a dog owner who likes to say, how do we balance this? I don't know, I couldn't see, it's the same, Tim, you didn't have a picture that showed what was cleared afterward. You didn't have from the air. If you had, that you could easily see that what trails that were there, there's not that much. There may have been a few little paths that would have gone to the area which was not cleared. That's not a correct word. Bushes were knocked down. And you can walk back and stand on one of the little dune areas and see the ocean out a ways. But do you want a dog park? Do you want a nature trail? And pardon? So that's what we have to do. Maybe it should never have ever been a dog park. But then so you have to balance. And some of the most people against doing anything were not dog owners. And this was primarily created in 2010-11 as a dog park. And it's heavily used. Please don't distract us from the audience. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We're trying to arrive at a situation. And just be courteous to us while we speak. We were very courteous to your speaker. And so just I ask you to do the same thing for us. Because it distracts me when I'm trying to say something. Thank you. I don't need to see your phone. But that's where I wind up. I don't see the need to create a concrete structure in the middle of a dog park. But personally, if it were me, I would like to see the area expanded for the dogs and then be able to rotate the area. No one in the big dog park side, and it wasn't everybody there with the dogs, not a person said they complained about the sand. I guess it's others that maybe use the trail complained about the sand. We live in Florida, folks. We have sand. We don't have dirt. We don't have clay. We have sand. So it's there. Get some sand between your toes and enjoy the fact that we have it. One thing that I thought was unique or curious, I noticed it before, but it was brought to my attention. The signs for no digging, I'm sure those dogs can't read that. But I found it curious that it was there. How do you stop? I can't stop my dog from digging, even if I put signs up. They're gonna dig. But be that as may, that's my position on what I would say is to not either do nothing as far as making concrete walkways in the middle of that desert and let it grow back, or expand it to where you have a dog park that's more manageable, more usable, without destroying the, quote, trail, and the trail that is primarily there. And by the way, the times that I've been there, I've not seen a person on the trail. Doesn't mean they're not there, because I'm not there 24/7, and I understand that. But the most people that were there using it, that area were the dog people. So, Ms. Post?
So I wanted to clarify, because you mentioned the concrete structure, and I just wanted to clarify that it is just basically a sidewalk going from the main entrance to the pavilion where they can sit. So it's just, it's not, taking out any of
It's
the
concrete.
vegetation or doing any of that.
Didn't
but
say that.
It's simply a sidewalk going through, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Well,
Correct.
it's more than simply a sidewalk, because you have to have the engineering to make it ADA compliant. You have to have the slope on it such that a person can use a wheelchair, and it just does take a person from A to B. For what purpose? To sit on a bench? The dogs are not going to use it.
But let's think about that, because it is ADA compliant, and if I have a little dog, God forbid something ever happened to me and I was in a wheelchair, I would hope that I would be able to traverse through the sand and get to my little bench so I could actually attend the dog park. But I did want to clarify the sidewalk part, and I also wanted to say, I know that when I went out, I met you out there and some other people from the county, and been out there myself. And each time that I was out there, I talked to a number of people, and I didn't find one person that was for not expanding, meaning the people that I spoke to did not want to expand the park, and they did complain about the sand. And I have to say, I came from another event when I met you as well, and I was in heels, so I complained about the sand. But anyway,
Well-
but I just wanted to.
Yeah, in regard to the concrete path, if it's the will of the council to add the concrete path, I would have to make it ADA. I think if it's not ADA, I'd be asking for trouble. It would have to be ADA.
And those funds, that's a good point too, to explain where those funds would come from.
It's all park capital improvement funds. No general fund dollars would be associated with any new asset that we put out there at that location would be all park impact fees. No general fund dollars. Now, if there's a need to replace it at some time in the future, then it becomes a general fund expense.
And the maintenance would be general fund.
Correct. Yeah, and that's via the existing staff that are out there every day.
Right,
They're
that's general fund.
crew, and they roll in, roll out.
And this park is not just for Ormond Beach or Ormond by the Sea or the people that live on the North Peninsula. It's for anyone in Volusia County that wants to use it.
Absolutely.
Right,
So-
Councilman Wheeler mentioned, and she lives in Daytona Beach.
So
Shores.
it is for anyone who wants to use it. Ms. Wheeler?
Yeah, again, my suggestion, I was the one that suggested that the possibility of the concrete walkway. I was just referring to the request of everyone that one area gets beat up so badly, and trying to figure out another way we could take some of the wear and tear off of that front area, because we just can't keep up with the mulching or whatever. It just becomes an endless stream. So that was the only reason. But as I'm thinking, Commissioner Post mentioned about that might be good for some of the ADA approval for people to be able to get back through there. From what I understand, the people were mainly complaining about, they didn't want the expansion, but there's been a constant problem with that wear and tear on that. I don't know. I just think that if you expand the park area, you're just going to have a larger wear and tear area. It's just going to continue. And so I really, again, I'm going to go back to, I'm okay with not expanding and maybe trying to come up with another solution for those front areas where it constantly needs maintenance.
If you have a larger area that you can rest, just as we did in Ormond Beach, resting the baseball fields, the soccer fields, to allow them a time to grow, there would be a period of time. Now, if you allow it to grow in and 2 weeks later it's going to be a sand dune, then maybe it's not worth that. But the larger you have of an area, the more you have it spread out to use, the less wear and tear you're going to have on it. So if you had, instead of 1.6 acres, you had the additional half acre or whatever the land was going to be, when it's something like 4/10 of an acre added.
Yes, the area that's currently cleared is 193 by 120. It's about 0.51 acres that's cleared currently right now.
Right. And you would need to do a little more than that if you wanted it to make it. So you're talking about increasing by 25% the area of basically the large dog park section of the total park is 1.7 though, isn't it? 1 point.
Yeah, the large dog area is 1.6.
1.6.
Yep, acres. Now, if you subtract out the current landscaped areas that I showed you on the map, it brings it more in line with 1.2 of footprint, square foot area that dogs are able to run.
And for those of you who haven't walked it, if you walk along the fence line, there is grass on to the north side and there's grass to the south. So if a person wanted to walk back there, and we've had no complaints from anyone about having, I don't know how anyone could expect you to have a sand dune ADA compliant just to walk in a dog park. I mean, I may be wrong on that, but I mean, if you create a walkway, it does have to be. If you leave it as it is what it is and does not have to be compliant with the ADA requirement because it's an open area. As well as the trail is. Ms. Cusack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for all of the participation and concern about this park. I think that we should, based on what I'm hearing from many of the people that use the park, they want it to remain as it is. And so I would say that we ought to adhere to that. I think we ought to try to improve the entrance with this sidewalk or the concrete area and see what happens with that. That might be my recommendation. I think that we have beat time that we move on with that.
Agreed.
Thank you,
Kind of like
Mr. Chair.
chickens, isn't it?
That's right. Kind of like chicken, herding
yet.
chicken.
Ms. Denny's.
Thank you. So listening to all of this, I think there's a couple things here, and somebody alluded to this. It's either a dog park or it's a trail. So we go back to the original intent and the expenditure of funds and the purpose is a dog park. And we're getting crossing hairs, dog hairs, whatever you want, with a trail. The intent of the purchase of the land and all the money that the county has funded this and maintained this is a dog park. You add concrete to sand, what do you get? Erosion. After you get erosion, it's going to require more and more. You're going to create environmentally exactly what you don't want. What you think that you want, you're going to get the exact opposite effect. So whether you expand it or not, that's I'm either way on that. But as far as my direction, I don't support concrete out there. I just don't. It's a dog park, and I just think we're then it's going to be this and then it's going to be that. If it's a dog park, you don't want it expanded, fine, let's keep it a dog park and let's maintain it to keep it that way for utilization as a dog park. But adding concrete to sand is not the answer to fix anything in Florida. It's just not, and will require more permits and the ADA and all of that. So that's my 2 cents, but I won't support concrete out there.
Can I have a motion to leave the park as it is, not to enlarge it, and let it be as it exists, and the staff come back with that direction that we have to vote on?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Ms. Wheeler, you just want to?
No, that was it.
So we have a motion and a second to leave it as it is. The area that was knocked down will be allowed to grow back as it is, and we'll go forward, and that's the direction from council to staff. Any objection to that motion? Hearing none, the motion passes, and we expect that direction will come back in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Thanks, Tim. No. Sorry, and Ms. Cusack had a conference call that was important relative to, and she's smiling about it as we interrupt her. We'll move to item 6. This is a public hearing, and I'll open the public hearing, and we'll have the staff report.
Good morning,
Mr.
Palmer Panton, Planning and Development Services Director. This is a rezoning of approximately 15 acres located at 6111 Lake Winona Road, as shown on the area location map on page 652 of your agenda items. It's in Delenn Springs area.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Sure. Sorry, is that better?
That's better.
Good. It's being rezoned from a request to rezone from A1 and RC zoning classifications to BPUD, Business Plan Unit Development, and RC zoning classifications. This came to you on October 19th of this year as a result of a denial to process a special exception, and staff was directed to bring this back as a planned unit development. This is to allow the use of a 13,700 square foot warehouse for the distribution purposes for distilled alcoholic spirits, wine, and prepackaged foods, fresh fruits, and vegetables. Proposal is to have 2 semi-trailers a week and then 2 or 4 20-foot panel trucks for distribution. This was heard at the PLDRC meeting of November 14, 2007, and the commission voted 6-1 to forward it to you for approval. Since that meeting, there has been some concern about using the unpaved portion of Lake Winona Road for access. And we've talked to the proposed tenants, and it's my understanding that they will agree to use the paved portion for their access. We have to answer any questions you may have.
This is a public hearing. I have 3 people who wish to speak for this. Chris Salabucci? Is that correct, Salabucci? Calabucci.
Thank you for allowing us to appear before you again. As was mentioned, we were here back in October, and Mr. Patterson and the rest of the council was nice enough to find a solution to our issue, which I think over the past couple of months we've worked closely with staff regarding the change from A1 to a BPUD. It's important to note, as you see in that picture, that we're only talking about using the one building there that has the black roof. The additional buildings will remain under the control of Mrs. Schuman, the landowner, for her own personal use, and will not be used for the purpose that the main building is intended for use. We did agree to several conditions recommended by staff at the PLDRC meeting, which I believe are included with the information that you've been provided. And additionally, as was mentioned, we did agree regarding the request to not use the unpaved portion of Lake Winona Road and use only the paved portion coming in off US 17, which that again is not a problem with respect to the approval. Approving this project will allow Mrs. Schuman, who's operated a farm in that area for the last 65 years, the opportunity to make better use of her land, considering there's been a decline in the demand for agriculture. That particular building was used as a fern packing warehouse, and the use that we're asking for really will not be much different from that. It's only the product that will be stored there. The impact to the local community will be no more significant than was there before. We've contacted all the local landowners in that area. None have objected to this project. So we would ask that you look favorably upon our request. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Dan Hux?
Honorable council members and county chair. Yes, I'm here speaking for this. I believe this is a great opportunity for the county because it's allowing use of a building that's already there. There's no additional taxes that are going to have to be used to improve anything, and it's going to bring a business into the area, which is going to increase employment for our county, and it's going to allow her to continue to pay the taxes on the building rather than coming back to you and asking to have the value of the property reduced. So I'm 100% for it. I believe it's a good use of the building. I think it's a win-win for the county.
Thank you, Dan. Fred King?
Good morning. My name is Fred King, and I am a property owner adjacent to Mrs. Schuman's property. I own approximately 35 acres, and I think I have the longest mutual border to her property. I would like to speak in favor of the application, especially Mrs. Schuman recently was widowed, as you probably already know, and I agree it would allow her to use the building where it's not being used at the present time. So I would be in favor of supporting this application.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
I have no other cards filled out, so we'll close the public participation portion. Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Originally, Mr. Calabucci and Mrs. Schuman had talked to me some time ago regarding this, and so trying to find a solution, and I'm glad that staff was able to come forward and us to put something together here. The fern industry is having a time, and when I mentioned earlier about agriculture and its impact in the MSD, here is an opportunity that we can to continue a property that for the tax value that is going to be used, plus what will be generated by the company that's going to be doing business here. I think this is very important. I think we need to look in the future for some other areas, especially in the agricultural area, of how we can improve maybe some of the problems that I see coming up in the future because of the fern industry. It's still going, but there are some issues out there. I've known the Schumans for a long time, and anyway, I move approval of rezoning of 14.15 acres located at 6111 Lake Winona Road, Leon Springs, from A1 to RC zoning classification to the BPUD and RC zoning classification PUD 18-004 with the recommended conditions of approval for case PUD 18-004.
Is Ms. Cusack second? Mr. Patterson made the motion.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Patterson, does that include the condition that the ingress and egress will be on the paved portion of Lake Winona Road?
Most definitely. I don't even think
Thank you.
I wouldn't even want to take a Jeep down that dirt road over there. So,
Okay. Motion is made and second. Any additional discussion by council? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous, and thank you very much. And it is good to see a property become productive again. It's like creating a plant growing. So thank you, all of you, for your support in this, and wish you all the best with this project. And as Mr. Patterson said, let's have some more of these. We'll move to item 7.
Palmer Panton, Planning and Development Services Director. This is a request to rezone B2C and A3 zoning classifications to the Business Plan Unit Development on 2095 East New York Avenue, DeLand. It's 4.2 acres on the northwest corner of Kepler Road and State Road 44, east of DeLand. This is the existing Circle K gas station. It's going to expand from approximately an acre and 1.4 acres to 4.2 acres. Increase the number of pumps to 20 stations. It will make improvements to the driveways. There will be a right turn lane into the driveway on State Road 44, and the driveway on Kepler will still be a right-in, right-out only, but with what's known as a pork chop, raised pork chop put in there to prevent any left-hand turns out of the station. This went to the PLDRC on October 10, 2017, and they voted 7-0 to bring it to you for approval. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
This is a public hearing, and Michael Woods.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Council. Michael Woods, for the record, 351 East New York Avenue, Suite 200, on behalf of the applicant Circle K. Really want to just let you know that we're here to answer any questions you may have for today, but I want to touch upon just a few brief points in my time. With me today is Bowman Consulting and Lassiter Transportation Group, should you have any specific questions on the application. I want to thank staff. This has been a project we've been working on for a good while, dating back to March or April. And part of that was trying to suss the tea leaves of what FDOT's plans are for the intersection and trying to have a good back and forth there. And staff was very patient of trying to push us through while making sure we have a thought out process or know all the answers that we can. And I also want to thank the neighbors. I know that a lot of why we have a lack of opposition, let's say, is a luck of geography and the fact that we have our pre-established business. But I do want to point out, when we've met with the neighbors, I do this a lot. I deal with a lot of different groups, and I'm sure there'll be times down the road we'll agree to disagree, but I liked how we conducted ourselves back and forth. The conversation was always very productive, and I think it merits being noted. As to the actual project, obviously on the record you've got a staff report that supports the approval and consistency with the comprehensive plan, and I wanted to let you know that our approach on this has been to have a light hand out of deference to the commission, or to the neighbors. We didn't go into any land use changes because that lets open a whole lot of what if, what could you do, what could happen down the road. We went to a PUD when really we're basically upgrading an existing use. The PUD requirement is really there for the configuration of the fuel pump islands themselves, but it gives a lot of certainty to the neighbors and as to what's coming down the pipe. We've eliminated the fears of what could be and tried to define what that use is. We also are greatly improving an existing condition. Obviously, it's an older facility, going to be upgraded. The main on-site improvement that you're going to see with this construction is the relocation of that driveway on 44. I know traffic is a big concern. You had a lot of conversation about that previously. As far as a concrete improvement right away, is moving that driveway away from the intersection by about 300 feet is going to help alleviate the stop and go, bumper collision kind of accidents. We meet the standards from the traffic analysis, and there will be a nominal prop fare share payment that will go through with the site plan, but we won't be substantially adding to the issues at this intersection. The only other point I would like to point out, just because I'd like to alert you guys to bigger issues, we talked a little bit about the size of the lot during Palmer's presentation. We're at about 1.2 acres with the existing operation. We're going to be up to about 4.7. Part of that is mainly directed because this is a property that was built in the 80s. We are now applying the new standards, both for the setbacks for right-of-way and the landscaping. And so as a result, you're getting about 70, 75 feet of property being dedicated to that use. So much so that if you take the existing or the proposed project and you calculate setback and dedicated right-of-way, that almost exceeds the total acreage currently operating the gas station on. That's fine, we can work with that. But I want you to be aware of that's going to be an issue with a redevelopment of some of these older buildings along the corridors into DeLand. It's because of the property being available immediately to our west that we could acquire that property. You could handle that. You could accommodate those setbacks without any variance. But I know that there's probably going to be some properties, particularly along ISB, where it's a shallower property, that you're going to see structures that you would like to breathe new life into it, and that may be a challenge. That's not to say that the setbacks and those requirements aren't good, but I just like to put a bug in everybody's ear that you may see that down the road with other projects in the DeLand vicinity. Other than that, I'd reserve any time to answer any questions you may have, or if there's any comments or concerns from the neighbors, but I think we try to do as best we could to respond.
Mr. Patterson.
Mr. Chairman, I really don't have any questions. As many of you might know, this is in my backyard where I live, and I know the traffic problems that we've had out there in that area, and they continue to go on, and I'm hoping to continue to be able to work towards resolving a lot of this. I don't really feel, I know that this is not going to really create any more traffic problems. I think it may a bit of what's going on over in that area. But every day when I come home at 5 o'clock, it's still, moving very slowly. But I can say that it does move. It's just a long line of cars. It shows the number of people that are coming back into the DeLand area. It also shows the number of people that leave DeLand to go work outside of DeLand in the morning. I've worked that corner many years, over 20 years holding campaign signs, and I have not yet been run over yet. So it works to my advantage, but it has been an interesting process. And I'm out there in the unincorporated area of the county, and I love it. And I'd still live on a dirt road. Where's Jerry Brenton at? I love it out there, my little 4 acres on the lake. Mr. Chair, I move approval of rezoning from B-2C and A-3C zoning classification to BPU-DC zoning classification of 4.2 acres located at 2095 East New York Avenue, DeLand, PUD-17-040, with the recommended conditions of approval of the case for case PUD 17-040.
Second, Denny's. Any discussion? We'll first of all close the public hearing, and secondly then, any opposition to the motion? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Woods. We will move now to item 8. This is a reinstatement or appointment to the HAB Board, or Halifax Area Advertising Authority Board, which I guess is called the HAB Board. I guess, Ms. Post, you're up for a nomination. You thought you were slipping away, didn't you?
Yes. I would like to nominate Jim Berkeley with the lodging industry.
Okay. Jim Berkeley has been nominated for the appointment of the Halifax Area Advertising Authority Board. Any objection to that nomination? Hearing no objection, the nomination stands. We will now move to public participation. I have no one wishing to speak additionally, so we will now go to council, and we'll start with Ms. Post.
I don't have anything.
Ms. Wheeler.
I'm good, thanks.
Let's see that. Oh, well, pardon, you good? Okay. Ms. Cusack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any.
Ms. Denny's.
I have two things. If I could just pass these down to you, council. When I was in, and this happened in between council meetings, and because of the sunshine law, could not contact you, but spoke with the manager and our attorney, and to make sure that it was approved. And Mr. Rick Carl, what happened was we had a request from Embry-Riddle for a letter of support on a program with aviation and aerospace, in a program, if you can see it, to qualify the new Unmanned Aircraft System UAS Integration Pilot Program. So they were looking for letters of support, and I put it on my letterhead just under my name, but attached the resolution of support that's been endorsed twice by council, not this council, but two previous councils, because it's public record, it's public document anyway. So this went under my name, under my letterhead, but what I'm hoping is that you can look at this and support this, and we do it as a complete county council letter of support. And this goes to what I've been saying for the last several months, spoke with Mr. Carl and the manager about this also, is that after the first of the year, council, we need to have a workshop, allot some time on what commercial aerospace, the impact it has for Volusia County for economic development, not just for Embry-Riddle and our airport, but economic development, our cities, and some things we can do for zoning, actually, and to get some permitting expedited, because it's not if, it's when we get this next second or third tier market that comes in. And I will tell you, having been here and been part of and watched behind the scenes what our staff did and the process when we were, it wasn't SpaceX, who were we in with? It wasn't
Blue Horizon?
Blue Origin.
Blue
Yeah,
Origin.
Project Panther, which was our code for Blue Origin. That was, it was impressive with what we came to the table with, and we didn't lose it because we didn't have the pieces. That was just location, location, location at that time, because they opened up a couple more strips down there at the launch site down at the Cape. But that's filling up. It's filling up, and we have manufacturers. You would be shocked if you knew the manufacturers in Volusia County right now that support this industry in the second and third tier market. So what I put together on behalf and using several of our staff to craft the letter was just a letter of support on behalf of Embry-Riddle, and hopefully that they can get positioned to capture part of this market that's out there, and with FDOT, because it was time sensitive. There was in fact, the time was the day I wrote it and got it out. That was
dead time.
yeah, I happened to be walking down the hall and actually ran into Mr. Carl coming out of a conference with the manager and other individuals here. So that's why I did what I did. You can take a look at it if you want. I'm not asking you to make a decision today. Maybe we bring it back at the next meeting, Mr. Chair, if that's okay, and then go forward with that. And the manager, Mr. Manager, if you could, council, if you in agreement, we get something scheduled after the first of the
Sure.
year, just to get an update
Thank
on where
you
we
for
are.
taking the initiative on that. Sometimes deadlines happen between meetings, and you have to do what you have to do, and I think that this was absolutely the best way to handle it, since we can't talk to each other.
Exactly. Oh, that's, yeah. And the only other thing that I'd like to bring up is from our fee discussion. There's been a lot of conversation out there when staff brought before us several categories of fees to look at for consideration, to increase, maintain, whatever. And I'm going to go on the record saying, and we've been criticized in a couple of venues for this discussion. At no time should any organization, let alone elected officials, because of the Sunshine Law, be criticized by staff for staff bringing an issue forward and we having discussion at any time. It's got to be an open dialogue, an open discussion. And that's what we've had, was a discussion on these fees. But to that point, it was good in that I started drilling down on the parking garage and asking a lot of questions. There's some fair things that were asked, and when I see them, it's like, is this true? What does this mean? What's the history, right? So when I talked with the manager and talked with staff, I met with Donna and her staff at length on the parking garage specifically. And what I'd like to do is separate the parking garage. I think it's big enough on its own to stand on its own in a category of its own, and even put in the capital projects update. I'd like to direct staff, if you're in agreement, to come back with the parking garage, because what we need to see, first of all, is a historical review of the costs. 3 years is good, including, though, the historical perspective of what it cost to purchase it and the debt that came along with it, and why that happened. We'll look at the 3 years of the revenues and expenses in those categories, and then the capital cost improvements that we put into that garage over the last 3 years, but yet what's going to be coming up, what the requirements are. So there's a reason. I mean, we're not going to raise a fee just for the sake of raising a fee. It's, you know, and the editorial, it really got me thinking, show me the money. I thought, well, you know, that's a good question. That's a very fair question. So I think it's, looking at this will give us a better picture of where we are on that particular asset that we have, because there's also so many layers to this, because we have contracts with the water park, with the movie theater. There's so many pieces to this that won't be impacted even if fees are raised. And I will tell you, I've spoken with several people, Beachside, Daytona, and several leaders and business owners, and I flat out asked them, if the county raises a fee in that garage, and this would be a good question for us to have between now and whenever we do this, for all of us, will this impact your business? Will this have a negative effect on your business? I didn't get one yes that it will have a negative impact. Their concern was for the water park and the movie theater, because those are anchors for that particular ocean walk down there. Well, this won't impact that because we have separate contracts with the water park and the movie theater. So it's a very complicated issue, but also going forward with projects like this, for us as a council, I want to have all this information before we get to the presentation to raise or keep the same amount of fee. Mr. Manager, I would ask that any project this big from going forward, give us the history, even if it's just attached documents, so that by the time we get here, we don't have to back up and meet with staff and drill down to get the rest of the story going forward. It would just save us all a whole lot of time and stop some headlines too. And but give us the information. We need to do the right thing, whether we increase them or not. but there's a reason. In looking at this, I'm actually pretty convinced that the fees need to be increased. And if they don't, it's an enterprise fund, it's another enterprise fund. How are we, if we don't increase the fees, how are we going to pay for the needed capital expense? Because the building is what, 20 years old? It's about 20 years?
Yeah.
It's about 20 years old.
Yeah.
Plus, the other piece to this is there's a bond out there from the original purchase that expires in 2024, if I'm correct. So in 2024, it's going to free up a whole bunch of cash. So those are things that we need to know and we need to see in the projection going forward when we make these decisions. So, Mr. Manager, I would just ask you.
Yeah,
if you could
we can do that. But one of the things in trying to understand where the council wants to go for, we deliberately went out of our way to not make that a hearing over having rates. It was really just a conceptual discussion of where do you want to go, and we would bring all this stuff back. You know, that to me was, I don't get this chance to have these discussions with all of you under the sunshine unless we sit there and talk. That was really just an opening statement to say, because we weren't asking you to vote on anything, just to say, do you want to consider even going down this path?
Okay. Right.
So I think what became pretty obvious to us is there was two categories here. We'll call them the slam dunk sort of low-hanging fruit. There are some things that nobody would ever object to you raising fees on, and things that you should do, like the medical examiner and all that. We can pull some of that off and bring that forward because in hearing from almost everybody, it was like some of these are like, we should be doing them. I mean, in fact, I would argue that we ought to look at the concept of raising a bunch of our fees by ordinance, by CPI on a regular basis, because you're just losing ground. In other words, once you know,
Let's move on.
but if you want us to do that, we would like to do that.
Okay.
And before we move on, because I want to know what I'm moving on,
Right.
is that I'm willing to bring forward then something that's easy to move forward on, I think, and so I'll talk to you all about that. And then we'll do a separate thing on the parking garage.
Yeah, I thought that that's what we had instructed. Maybe I was not correct.
No, this would be a different way of doing it.
Okay. No, it's great on the parking garage, separating it out. That, I appreciate that, but we had asked you to go back on the increased fees to come back with that.
We'll do it now in two pieces.
Fine. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I was on the council when we did this, one of the council members back there when we approved this, and Dick Kelton was the acting county manager at the time when we came forward with this. I'd hate to say what that area would look like if we did not have that parking garage there. I mean,
Absolutely.
it has been a real, for everything around the Ocean Center and all the businesses around there, and I'm proud that I was part of that back then. And we caught a lot of grief back then that we were doing it. There was no need for it. And now here we are trying to just, I'll be glad when that bond is paid for.
Absolutely.
Paid off.
Absolutely.
Ms. Wheeler, did you have a comment you wanted to
Yeah,
make? on
I'm
subject
sorry
today?
that I passed over this, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming back to me. I did want to make mention, because I've had quite a few people contacting me in regard to the First Step shelter and what my feelings were with the news article that it was not going to be until 2019. Of course, I'm disappointed personally that that is where it's at. And what I think I can say that we are all completely engaged, that we are supporting this venture no matter what. But I'm wondering if it wouldn't help if we, for the financial reason that we do have money that we are coming up with, that we could ask for some kind of a clarification for their plans so we can budget the certain amount that they're going to be needing. That would give us kind of an idea of where they're heading and
I planned on during my comments to, you had asked me, I was going to address this specific issue. I've already written a letter, I was going to pass out.
Right. Okay. Dr. Lowry.
I just wanted to remind everybody what today is. It's Pearl Harbor Day, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and just say a giant thank you to all who have served and are serving, and to continue to pray for their safety. Thank you.
Mr. Patterson.
As always, the best for last.
I'm next.
You don't count sometimes there, Mr. Chair. Sunrail, folks, I guess you've read the stories in the News Journal. The Orlando Sentinel had a story yesterday with me commenting that I'd rather be investing in Powerball tickets. It was a very frustrating meeting. You know, when my goal is to protect the taxpayers of Volusia County, and you've got 4 other commissioners who are elected officials, that if they were in the situation that we're in right now, looking at 2021, that they would be trying to protect their taxpayers. So to any of those that are down there running for re-election, I hope somebody doesn't pick it up that they don't really care about the taxpayers for a change. I would like the council to kind of just bless me to go see the DOT secretary to see where he stands in Tallahassee. All you got to do is pay for my gas, and because I got a place to stay, and I want to really have a meeting with him to see what DOT's position is and where they are on all of this. So,
Well, I think in light of the changes that we've had locally with FDOT, I think to go there, Pat, I think would appreciate you going. And
I don't want to do it by myself. I want to know that the council is behind me on this when I go up there.
I think you got an affirmative.
Okay, well, it'll be after the first of the year. I just like to go. The next meeting is not scheduled till March. I've got to say that between Jim Deneen and Dan Eckert supporting me with the information that I need to be able to do what I'm doing, it's rough. I mean, you got a situation that is really, really weird. And when you're trying just to get some simple amendments passed, and I can suddenly see that my impression is that they want to open this thing up, and God only knows what they're wanting to do and how it may affect us in the future. It's very troubling to me. It really is, the direction of who's going to be operating this thing come 2021. As far as, I mean, the commission will be controlling it, but who will the commission? And when you've got some of the commissioners thinking that it should be links, and I don't have a lot of confidence in links, you know, and the issue of the airport, they're wanting to go to their airport, and the impact that that'll have on our airport in the future. We just doubled the parking lot of the DOT, just doubled the parking lot, but it doesn't generate a dime in revenue, and yet we're putting out probably close to $150,000 to $160,000 a year to maintain the parking lot. So there's some real issues there for us, and I'm gonna stay on top of it. So as long as you guys want me going down there, I'll be going down there having my little fun. Thank you. The other thing, I want to just say a big thank you to staff, Clay Irvin and his department regarding the Schuman property and the other things that they have helped me with. You know, sometimes there's some little snakes out there. You just got to get past it. Coming from somebody who just got bit by a rattlesnake 2 weeks ago, I can appreciate that. And
in Tallahassee?
Huh?
That wasn't in Tallahassee.
No, that was on my front yard. No, not in my yard. It was my front door. I got bit twice by a pygmy rattler. Next, Chris Hutchinson and the code enforcement, because I've had a couple of issues. One of them up in De Leon Springs. It took us a while to really get that thing resolved. They finally got this. I mean, a guy bought some property and turned it into a junkyard, and it's an individual that kind of moves from city to city, and you know, just running it, basically just cannibalizing vehicles that they bring in there. And help that they're giving me in Seville right now on the same type of operation that's going on, that they've got it coming back before the code board. So these characters really, really just, they'll play you a little bit. They'll make some improvements, and then when they think you've gone away, they bring in some more of their junk cars in there. So for Chris and that department, I really appreciate everybody in code enforcement. I mean, we have a proactive code enforcement. People think that we should have 40 people riding around the county writing tickets up. We just don't do that. But, you know, I have a slew of people that contact me, and when I get in touch with staff, they get right on it, and those issues get taken care of. So, Mr. Manager, I appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Chair. One thing that I have heard that it's disturbing to me and it's discouraging is that I don't think people understand that this was a long time coming. It's a very complicated agreement, and you are not going to change and protect the taxpayers in one meeting. We're in it for the long run. It doesn't end. And so I think the people have to understand that what Mr. Patterson and the council's doing is going to stay the course, but you're not going to get this change in one meeting. This is going to be over some time. And that I think some people think, well, you can go down there in one meeting, and well, how come you don't get a change? It don't work that way. And Mr. Patterson's doing a good job representing you, and it is going to be a slugfest. Get it done.
If you want to see an example of stonewalling, you get it down there. I mean, I really just cannot understand why they just don't see our point of view that we put up another $750,000. You know, they keep asking if Volusia County is committed. Sometimes I think we should probably be committed, according to some of the taxpayers out there, that it even exists, but I think it is good. I mean, I ride Sunrail. That's how I get down there for the meetings. And it's something that there's a lot of people in Volusia County that use that Sunrail going into the Orlando area. And but it will prevail.
Okay. Just a couple of quick things. At the last meeting, I mentioned that I would like for us to consider the meeting days coming up in the future. I've talked with our county manager and came up with some thoughts that I'd like to bring back at the next meeting, and that was he looked at and said Monday, Wednesday, and Friday would be out days that we couldn't make any change to. We came up with the idea of a Tuesday, and I asked him to make sure that staff could work within that and make it work if we were to be able to switch the time of the date to Tuesday. And I know this is a little different than what's been going on the last 50 years or so, but I know there was some apprehension when we changed the meeting time from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Some of you were unsure whether that would work. I think now we see it has worked, and I know that from staff perspective, they appreciate the meeting starting at 10 to give them a chance to do what they need to do. I'd like for each of you to consider to bring it back with questions and thoughts to discuss going into next year. I looked back and tried to analyze the conflicts that I had either on that Tuesday or an additional meeting that Tuesday night. Tonight's another prime example where we have an event. Several of us have events to go. There seems to be an enormous amount of events on a Thursday. And it makes a real long day when you start the day here and you don't finish up till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I felt like that having a Tuesday as a day to work, as long as it would work, and it doesn't inconvenience anyone, to look at that and say, try it. We can always adjust it. We can change it because we found out in the charter we don't have to have that date. If there comes a conflict with an event or during the setting of the tax rolls, we can change those days or adjust those days to comply. So if each of you would look at that, I came up with probably 20 days or 20 times that I've had to turn down to speak to civic groups on a luncheon, or the meeting again tonight, or a meeting following on a Friday. That would be a conflict. So I think it would really benefit me, and I believe it would benefit all of us who have those conflicts. It also gives us kind of, if we want to have a break, to have a long weekend. Like I said, airfares are cheaper on Thursday if you have to fly or if you want to go somewhere for a weekend. But Ms. Cusack, you want to have a question?
Mr. Chair, I just want to weigh in on that, and I think we'll have more discussion on this, but I think that it is important that we don't change things for the sake of change. I believe that citizens in Volusia County are accustomed to having our meetings on a said day of the week. And if we decide to change that, it ought to be some input from the citizens that we represent in that decision-making. And I think that there are always events that we are asked to attend. And Tuesdays are full of events also. My Tuesdays are from early in the morning to dead late in the evening. But, I mean, we can adjust those things, but I just think that to change things when we have done something in a manner that has been acceptable to the citizens that we serve, and then to convenience, I don't care what day we select, it's always going to be a conflict. So change itself is good, but change, just to change, I don't think that is the key. I'll be willing to entertain that, but I have some great concerns about when you have a set example of how you're going to operate, and you've had tradition and years of planning and being engaged, and everyone knows that we meet on these said dates. I think it's important that if we change, we should always look at that to make sure that we are not doing it just for our convenience and leave out the folk who permit us to serve and be here.
Absolutely, and I think that if we are able to make that change, I think it would be incumbent upon us maybe then to survey or ask people after we have done that, were they inconvenienced? I mean, I'll be willing to ask those that come. Obviously, we don't know everyone that's going to come before us, but I think that if it's going to cause a hardship on anyone, it would be our staff would be first and foremost that we would have to take of for change. Just like the meeting changing from 9 to 10, the people that we serve were very appreciative of the fact that we did that. We did the same thing at TPO when we used to start at 8 or 8:30.
But you didn't change the date.
The date has been changed. It used to be Tuesday.
Oh, that was, okay.
Used to be Tuesday and it switched to
Not
Thursday.
in the last 8 years.
But, yeah. Yes, ma'am. TPO was changed from Tuesday because I used to have a Monday night meeting for VCOG and a Tuesday morning meeting at 8:30 on TPO. So those dates have changed. I don't want to adversely impact anyone on it, but I can guarantee you that I've had to miss, and maybe there'll be things, there seems to be just so many more things that happen on Thursday. They do. I mean, we've had 3 out of the last 4 meetings, we've had an event on that Thursday evening that we could or should go to. And then you've got Thursday, and most of us have something on Friday or Saturday. So to allow us to have a break, I think better serves the people where we can get out there and better serve them. I don't like having to miss the ones that I've had to miss. That the Rotaries, they only meet on Thursday, and they've asked me to speak. They meet every week. They've asked me to speak, and I can't do that. I've got Rotary, other Rotaries that meet luncheons. I've got other luncheon clubs that meet on Thursdays that want us there, and obviously we don't have to do that. But I think if I can better serve the people and we can find that it doesn't adversely impact you or them or staff, then I would like for us to look at it, and it wouldn't be something that would be cast in stone if we worked it and we said, hey, this just isn't working. There's nothing that prevents us by charter. In Ormond Beach, we had charter that we had to adjust. Here, we don't have that restrictive in the charter. So I'm asking Mr. Deneen to bring back something next week for us to have additional discussion and questions. I just wanted you to have a chance to know that I'm not just dropping it, knowing that I'm not asking for a change just for the sake of changing. I'm asking a change it would make my life better, and I think it would make me a better servant to the people because I could do more on those Thursdays. So that's what I'm asking for. And
So when would you have your briefings if we had a meeting on Tuesday?
If you'd like us to entertain, just so you know, we looked at, and you make the decision, we'll support you any day you want it. It just seemed that Fridays and Mondays, everybody kinda, that we talked to, kinda like, well, Friday and Monday don't work for nobody.
Yeah.
So if you take out Thursday, it leaves Tuesday and Wednesday, and I know for a fact that I have at least one council member that realistically has a major commitment. that
Those are
cannot do
TPO
Monday.
meetings, executive committee and board meetings are Wednesdays.
Right.
So
Yeah,
Wednesdays.
so
are
the
out.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
so Tuesday sort of became the one of the least problematic. I will tell you, it would work for the administration if you want us to come back, and we'll make anything work on the administrative side, but Tuesday seemed the one of all those days that fit. We would come back with an overview to show you how it would work, on how the briefings would work. The good thing about Tuesday, or say, for example, Monday would be terrible, is that things happen right before the meeting sometimes, whether it's in the newspaper, it's on TV, or something happens to a council member, they have something they want to bring up. At least I've got a day then to get an adjustment to the agenda if we have to. Let me bring something back. Would you like to do it next meeting or?
Good.
Okay. I'll bring it back next meeting.
And we can have further discussion, and everyone will have.
We'll do one-on-ones too, to have you get your input and.
As
and
well.
We'll go through it.
Okay. And we have one more thing that I skipped over because it was only highlighted and in red print. I couldn't see it. It was looking too much like, anyway, I missed it. The Human Services Advisory Board, and I guess the question was, and I have not asked, I don't seem to get an answer on how this is arrived, but Ms. Post, you serve on it now, and I guess I was asked to ask a question, are you willing to continue to serve? And if so, what we need to do to make that happen? You have an answer for us.
I do, sir. I
Good.
think we've already addressed that.
Well, no,
It-
we haven't.
But no, I'm just saying, we've talked about, I think there were
Excuse
some
me, excuse me.
issues.
Let her explain it to me, because it has not been addressed to me or the council.
Okay.
Mrs. Post was originally appointed by you all to fill the unexpired term of the former chair. That term expired this fall, so we have to have you all reappoint her, and then this term would be for the remaining 2 years for a full term.
Right. Okay, that's, we have to do that.
May I comment on that now? Yeah.
But understand, just because you have had that conversation, we haven't.
Right, but I
and
haven't
have.
explained what the conversation was. I just wanted to point out that there was an issue in the past with it being on Tuesdays, which was my day of meeting with staff prior to the council meetings. And so that was an issue for me, having
Right.
to attend that meeting, because that's a meeting I cannot not be at. So
Right.
it was either going to that meeting or to that meeting. So I just wanted to point out that for January forward, we have talked about that, and they're going to ensure that those meetings do not conflict with either the staff meeting that I have prior to council or the actual council meeting, whoever does that.
Okay, but
I just wanted to
I
point
was,
that out.
I mean, that's fine. I was asked to ask if you wanted to continue serving, and if you want to continue serving, the council has to take action.
Right, I understand.
Okay. I guess I'm the only one who didn't understand. I'm sorry, huh?
No, you're not.
And it does require council action, so if somebody will make an appointment for the Human Services Board.
I'm just hoping that somebody would make a motion.
Because that's what we have to do.
Yeah, yeah, no, I wasn't arguing the point. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that that was expressed.
Motion is made by Ms. Wheeler to appoint Councilmember Post to the Human Services Advisory Board.
Fantastic.
Is there a second? Doesn't require a second. Any objection to the motion? Hear no objection, you are reappointed to the... And you sit too close to object, I think, Pat. With that, we'll move now to Mr. Deneen.
3 quick things, Mr. Chair. I'm going to have Donna, she's going to pass out a couple of things. One is that she's going to pass out, when we were at the executive committee meeting yesterday at Team Volusia, they have the newest material that they are actually using as handouts when they go on site visits out of the county. I thought it would be appropriate that you each got a copy of it so that you could see what's being handed out. It's pretty nice material, But that way you'd also know exactly what they're doing, but you'd have a copy of it yourself. It's one, they do other things, but this is one of the handouts. And they showed them to us, and I made sure you all had a copy. And each one's by individual areas. We're going to logistics and distribution, advanced manufacturing, aerospace. I didn't know if you'd had an opportunity to see these, so I brought them with me today. Two other things, and this will tie into the thing that Ms. Wheeler talked about. Let me get my sheet here. I thought I could give you an update because I've been asked on Hope Place and DeLand, City of DeLand, and then this will tie into First Step. Hope Place, and we're passing out a sheet on this, it's running on budget, on time. The operating contributions to date have, the documentation has been submitted and approved outlining the funds that were raised by the non-government sources for the first $200,000 match. And so our check will be dispensed in December. City of Daytona Beach has committed $75,000. Cities of Ormond Beach, Holly Hill, South Daytona have committed $47,969. We have an additional non-government funds being raised for operation to satisfy the second $200,000 match, and they're going to do a special fundraiser to sell bricks for Hope Place. The administrative offices, and this is the thing that stands out that you need to hear, will move to Hope Place on January 15th, and a public opening, which you are invited to, is planned for January 30th. Residents will be moving in after the opening. The thing that they anticipated trying to be open in August or September of last year. They ran into, like a lot of people, construction issues in an old building. That pushed them off until probably December, and then what pushed them even further now, a month or so, was the hurricane. It slowed delivery of materials. The one thing that they had not anticipated was the kitchen material. The kitchen they bought, okay, was not, they made a mistake. When they bought the kitchen, there was a miscommunication within their own staff at the nature of the kitchen equipment. And it meant they need to change the service delivery utilities to the kitchen different than what they originally intended. And so that's going to push the kitchen off into mid or late March. They're going to deal with food a different way for the residents until that period of time when they have the kitchen. City of DeLand, project is moving forward. Operating costs are estimated at $315,000. To date, they have 5-year commitments of $290,000, $161,000 from local governments, $85,000 from business, and $42,880 from churches, which is, I think, pretty impressive because these are 5-year commitments. They're developing operational plans for some volunteer support. Management agreement approved the neighborhood center for the operation of the shelter and day center, and estimates on the design and construction of the facility, and it'll be open by early 2019. So they're on a track to move forward. First Step. I've talked to, I think, all you council members about, we all read the same surprising news in the paper. After talking to Ms. Wheeler and talking to Alia, we're passed out a letter. If I could read it into the record, Mr. Chair, I think it'd be good. I did talk to the manager about this. Quite frankly, he was quite pleased to hear that we were going to do this. I say, Dear Jim, as you know, the County Council approved the First Step grant agreement with the City of Daytona Beach on June 15th, 2017. The agreement provides $2.5 million towards construction of a homeless shelter, including a commitment to budget $400,000 per year for 5 years to assist with the shelter's operating costs. The County Council asked that I communicate with you that their, quote, or underline, continued commitment to this project is regardless of the time frame for completion. However, and this was a new twist, and so I didn't have to use quite as artistic words. However, we are very supportive of recent statements indicating the city's desire to move forward on this project for completion in 2018. I talked to the manager about this yesterday. He's under the gun now to get this thing done a lot faster. As such, they are asking that you provide an update of the project's progress when your city adopts a formal construction schedule, which is something we would normally do. I talked to the manager about that. They are going to do that. When available, please provide a detailed implementation plan, including timelines and schedules. This information will be incorporated in our 5-year forecast and the budget plan in anticipation of making the appropriate payments when they were promised. We appreciate your partnership and dedication to provide this important service. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. What concerned, I think, all of us, and I know it concerned me, I talked to Jim about this, was this idea that if it took time, there could be thoughts that people would start second-guessing themselves on whether they were going to stay to their commitments that they made. I think the fact that we are underlying the fact that our commitment is strong and that doesn't matter, we're going to allow them to take the time. He wants to move it along, but it's complicated. I think they're going to find out it's a lot more complicated than maybe they thought. You look at the time it's taken for Hope Place to build it, and they had an existing building. I do think this will help, and he thinks it'll help keep from other people having some doubts about what their funding might be. I hope that answered your question, Ms. Wheeler. I know you had a concern. And one other comment is, and it's a really positive thing. Let's see where I marked it down here. Oh, and that is, the only person I got a chance to talk to this about was Ms. Post. And that is, behind the scenes, I've gotten some news working with economic development with the Pan American Games. Charlie Leidecker has been pushing that together with, there's this whole movement with the Speedway, of which we have money invested in that project over there, to become more than just for the races. As you see, they're doing the music concerts and the thing they did with the Ninja Warriors. They're trying to make it, the whole issue, I think we all realize, is amateur sports is the way to go. It's healthy, it's family-oriented. Well, we work with economic development, and I felt that it was within my purview to try and help them get the Pan American Games swimming portion here. And it is in July. It's a big deal. They're going to be down in, all these athletes down in Orlando. They were looking at other places. I'm going to come forward with a recommendation. Commitment's about $15,000. They're going to do the swimming now. It looks like Charlie let me know yesterday that he thinks we won the award, that they're going to bring the Pan American Games swimming portion for the beach swim here. So it'll be about 1,000 athletes. And also,
a lot better than Orlando.
Yeah, well, they were actually looking at Cocoa, they were looking at Flagler, all kinds of places. The other thing is, Chip a while called me about the international triathlon they're trying to get at the Speedway, and he's asked for our support because of the support relationship we have with the half marathon. And I told him, of course, we're interested in them making that kind of transition. And so that's yet to be determined. He's talked to me about coming over and seeing him next week. They're trying to settle on getting that there. They're going to actually use Lake Lloyd as part of a swimming thing for this triathlon over there. They have cleaned it out and changed it too, I heard.
They'll swim very fast.
Yeah. No, I've heard that they have made, Charlie told me, because it was kind of questionable. He's pretty picky. He told me that he actually went for a swim in it the other day and said that they made major changes to it.
There's fish and snakes and alligators in it.
Yeah, that's why you swim real fast.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Dan?
Nothing, sir.
Anyone else? Jim? Just, I meant to mention the One Daytona. I had not been out there, and I was just absolutely blown away. If you didn't know you were in Daytona Beach, you wouldn't know you're in Daytona Beach because of what they have done and all of the retail that's out there and the different shops and how that they're bringing in retailers that we don't currently have, which I think is a plus for some of us. I mean, we tried to eat at P.F. Chang's, and fortunately they had like a 2-hour wait, so we didn't get to eat there, but which we would have paid for. It was nothing free, and we had no strings to pull to get in, but even though we didn't try. But it is a beautiful addition to our community, and I think with what is being done there, they were start of a catalyst of the redevelopment, and now with the East ISB moving forward with what's happening in Daytona Beach on the beach side, recreating itself with additional hotels and restaurants, we're in the middle of an economic boom.
Yeah, we really are.
That we're riding this wave. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 12:14.
I think Mr. Rechtenwald had comment.
Oh,
George?
Well,
I was wrong, sorry.
You just,
Sure?
I asked, I gave him a chance.
I have nothing today.